Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing? Welcome to the live stream. There's no agenda. There's no particular announcement or anything that I'm doing. I literally just felt like having a chat with you guys. It's a Q&A. So if you want to say hello in the chat, please do so. If you want to ask a question in the chat, please do so and I will answer it. Um, Only thing to say, I suppose, is if you're watching this, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for subscribing. We've just hit 100,000 subscribers last week. And so, absolutely insane milestone. I cannot thank you guys enough for all the support that you've shown me. Yeah, just really appreciate it. So yeah, like I said, this is a Q&A. If you want to ask me some Qs, go ahead. I see some people in the chat. I see Pankaj Sonawane. Hello. Hello, Pankaj. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I see Obi Arnold says congratulations. Thank you, Obi. I appreciate it. Yeah, pretty mad achievement to get to 100,000 subscribers. So yeah, I can't thank you guys enough. Um, it's come very fast. Like it took me three years, about 3 years to get to 10,000 subscribers, and we've gone from 10,000 to 100,000 in just over a year, like a year and 4 months ish. So yeah, absolutely insane growth over the last year, and I appreciate all the support and everyone new who's here, everyone who's been subscriber since the beginning. Whenever you subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate it. Obi asks, "Am I a PhD student?" I am not a PhD student. I have a degree. I have a master's degree, both from the University of Warwick. But after my master's degree, I entered the workforce and stopped my stopped my academic career. At least for now. Maybe I'll go back and do a PhD at some point. I don't know if any universities still have me in their good books enough, but they'll take me on as a PhD student. But yeah, definitely not on the horizon right now. And I think that's a big reason why I'm able to talk about the topics that I'm able to talk about is because I'm outside of the academic system. I'm not reliant on it. I'm not funded by it. My career is not dependent on it. And so that's why I'm able to be very honest and frank about how I feel about the scientific system without any kind of fear of repercussions on my career. So yeah, no, not a PhD student. I work. I have a normal job. Aaron, thanks for pointing out all the BS going on in academia. It is my pleasure, mate, and thank you for watching my videos about it. I'm glad to make the videos to bring people's awareness to the situation, and yeah, no worries. Coaching managers and leaders says, King, I just finished my doctorate and I want to publish papers to compete for an instructor position. My question, will journals accept manuscripts from independent researchers? They might, though from my understanding, it's easier if you're part of a big university. So, but I don't know, give it a go. Obviously, it depends on the journal. Some journals are harder to get into than others. I'm sure the ones that are harder to get into might not. But yeah, I'm not the most qualified person to talk about that. So maybe go talk to some people who've done it before. Franco says, all videos are nice. Keep going. Thank you. Sweet Carbon says, appreciate your great videos, Chief. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. Fatik says, first of all, congrats on the 100K. Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely insane. My question for you is, what's your go-to recreational drug? I don't do any drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. My only stimulant is caffeine. I drink coffee, not even insane amounts of coffee, to be honest. Normally just one coffee a day. So yeah, I think don't mess with your brain unless you really have to. But yeah, not a drug guy. Obi Arnold, how much useful research do you think is actually done? I think a lot of useful research is actually done. What I cover on the channel is a minority of the research. It's a minority that's a lot bigger than people realize, but it's still a minority. And I think the majority of research is legitimate, and the majority of research is useful to its field. But yeah, but it's not. People. I think a lot of people have this perception that all scientific research is really good, or at least like 99% of research is really good. And I don't think that's true. I think it's probably putting a number on it is a bit arbitrary, but it's bigger than people think. The problem is bigger than people think. Marek Ant says, no questions, but just want to say I really enjoy your videos. Thank you, Marek. I appreciate that, mate. Thank you for watching. Pitam says, even though I know nothing about behavioral science as an engineering student, I still watch all your videos. Keep it up. Thank you. Well, a lot of my videos recently are not really about behavioral science specifically. They're just about kind of research practices and researchers in general. I've talked a lot about other fields. I've talked about physics. I've talked about medicine. So yeah, it's not all about behavioral science. It's really more about scientific methods and science as an institution in general. So yeah, no worries. Thank you for watching. Aaron says, I don't want to assume things, but given your steep success with academia and the issues concerning it, do you plan on expanding your reach and team, maybe start researching fraud yourself? I have thought about that. To be honest, uh, it doesn't seem that appealing to me because I do YouTube part time. I have a full time job, and I do YouTube on top of that full time job. So I'm already very pressed for time, and the idea of expanding my team and managing more people in my spare time just doesn't seem that appealing to me. So yeah, Ben Leb. Ben Leb has donated €2 49 and says thank you for your videos. Ben Leb, that is very generous of you. But please, nobody feel obliged to donate any money. I'm not asking for any money on this stream. That is not the point of this stream at all. But in fact, I don't know how to turn that function off. But if I did know how to turn it off, I would turn it off. But Ben Leb, nevertheless, that's very generous of you, mate. I appreciate that. Thank you for the support. Alexander says, congrats. How did you decide to start your channel? Basically, I started because I was bored in COVID. It was lockdown one. I was very bored. I had a chat with my childhood hero, Rory Sutherland, absolute legend of a guy. I ended up working for him later on. I had a chat with Rory Sutherland, and basically Rory said there's a massive shortage of behavioral science content on the internet. That was part of our conversation, and then that just got me thinking, and I was like, I have a camera, I know the basics of editing, and I sure as hell know a lot about behavioral science. Why don't I start a channel where I teach people about behavioral science, since that's what I'm really passionate about? So it was a very spontaneous thing, to be honest. I went to bed one night, told who was my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I was like, yeah, tomorrow I'm just going to start a YouTube channel about behavioral science. And I did the next day. And I think I got like 100 subscribers in my first week. And that was like insane to me that over 100 people would subscribe to me based off like one video. So yeah, so I just kind of carried on from there. I only talked about behavioral science, or pretty much only talked about behavioral science for a long time, for like 3 years, pretty much. And then basically over the last year and a half ish, then I started talking about more scientific fraud, and that kind of started with Francesca Gino, who, of course, is a behavioral scientist. So that was kind of how I stumbled into this kind of genre of YouTube video, which I've now kind of made my own genre on YouTube. Raphael Mert says, congratulations, Pete. Really great stuff you're doing for the open science community. Yeah, no worries, mate. Open science is definitely one potential solution, or at least something that could help the academic issues that we see. So if you guys don't know, open science is the idea that science shouldn't be paywalled, that science should have an open communication, that things like peer review should be open, and everything should be transparent for everybody. And there's a lot of benefits to that from an inequality point of view, from a transparency point of view, from an accountability point of view. So yeah, I am quite a big fan of open science. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that you are too. Pratik says, sorry, it was a joke. Same. I don't do any drug or smoking. I'm much more of a caffeine guy. Good for you, mate. Appreciate it. Ben Leb says, drug jokes, heart. And Pratik says, I also just really enjoy your videos. I appreciate that. Aaron says, wow, that's crazy how to manage that. Congrats with all. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to make YouTube videos and do a full-time job. That's why sometimes I'm not the most consistent with my uploading. It's just because I'm really busy. I got a lot of life stuff going on, so I can't, committing to one video a week is really difficult, especially the kind of videos that I make. Like, if I was like a React YouTuber, if I was doing like what Sniper Wolf does, for example, where she just like reacts to a bunch of TikToks every day, like I could do that every week, sure. Um, but the type of videos I make require a lot of research, a lot of reading, very careful scripting, um, and like also sometimes I'm like reading academic papers, and I have to get my head around areas of scientific research which are not from my background, and that all takes a lot of time. So yeah, so I'm sorry for you guys who if I don't upload as frequently as you'd like, but that's the reason. That's the reason why. And I obviously I'm working 9 to 5 during the week. So yeah, sometimes it is a little difficult to find time to make the videos, but um, I do my best. I do my best. Pratik says, here's my real question. Which behavioral science concept do you think is most underrated or misunderstood? And how much has it influenced your content creation? Yeah, there's one, I have mentioned it in some videos before, videos that do not get a lot of views. So one is this concept of um, exploration versus exploitation, and it's like a very useful model of decision making that pertains to like a lot of different types of decisions that people make throughout life. And basically, the idea is exploration basically means trying something new, and exploitation means repeating the best thing that you've done in the past. It's a very useful concept. And one example of how it manifests in the real world is with ants, actually, not even humans, right? So, ant colonies will go out looking for food. And when one ant finds a good source of food, it will signal the rest of the worker ants to come to that same location and gather the food from that particular location. And so that's exploitation. But it is built into the way that the colony functions that a few of the worker ants will not follow that signal and instead will go off exploring other different food sources. And then when one of them finds an even better food source, then they are the ones who then produce the new signal that, hey, this is where the new food source is. And then the ants will start exploiting that new food source. And so you see there's this trade off between like exploiting the thing that you know works and exploring things that are new that may or may not yield any good fruit. But this is something which I think about a lot in many different aspects of life, and it's true on YouTube as well. So you'll notice that I know what kind of videos generally will do well on my channel, right? If there's a big scientific fraud situation, especially if it's attached to a big name university or a Nobel Prize winner, then generally that video is going to do very well. But you'll notice I throw in a few like other random videos that people might look at them and go, like, why are you making videos on that? That seems like really out of line with your usual content. Well, that's me exploring different content on this channel, other things that I'm interested in to see if any of it actually resonates with people. And sometimes it really does. Like, for example, I made the video about the history of lobotomies, right? And like that was, that's pretty different from scientific fraud. It's related to my expertise in psychology, but it's pretty different to like looking at specific papers that have academic fraud in them. But that video turned out to be really successful. So sometimes these sort of explore videos, these ones that are a little bit off the normal content that I make, end up really resonating with people, um, and then it really pays off for the channel in a big way. So yeah, this explore versus exploit framework of the way of thinking about things is something which I apply to YouTube and I apply to many other aspects of my life as well. Obi says, still on Aaron's question, you could be academia's CoffeeZilla. Whistleblowers will come to you. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I already am. Like my email inbox is flooded um, with you guys, emailing me about specific cases that Sometimes it's as simple as like, oh, can you look into this person? And then sometimes it's like people have done a lot of the research already, and they'll come to me with like examples and stuff. Unfortunately, I can't I can't make videos on most of the stuff that people send me because um, I just know that those videos won't do well. And like, if I'm going to, there's always an opportunity cost to every video that I make. And if I spend a week of my time, investigating this very specific topic, which I have a very good hunch won't perform well on YouTube, then that's actually a shame, right? It's like not a waste of my time, but it's not the best use of my time. So I end up not acting on most of the tip offs that I get on email. But so occasionally I do, and occasionally there are ones that are really interesting. For example, the one that I made about the Xerox hypothesis recently is based off an email that one of you guys sent me. So yeah, some of the videos are crowdsourced, but I can't do all of them, unfortunately. I just don't have the time. Um, Allah says, "Hello, I am planning to pursue a PhD in chemistry right now in high school. Any advice?" Um, yeah, I would say really consider if you're still in high school and you're dead set on doing a PhD in chemistry. I think you're a few steps ahead of where you need to be honest. Like if you're doing high school, get your grades in school first, get your undergraduate degree, then maybe do a master's, and then decide do you really want to do a PhD? Because I used to think that maybe I would do a PhD. By the time I finished my master's, I was like, you know what? There's actually no topic in the field that I'm in that I would want to do a PhD in. Because to do a PhD, you have to really, really love the thing that you're researching. Like you have to have a really strong internal motivation to research the very niche thing that you're researching. You're going to do it for like 4 or 5 years. And if you don't have that very strong draw to do that, then there's no point in doing a PhD because people who do a PhD have that in the beginning and then they still hate their topic by the end of their PhD. So like, yeah, I wouldn't get ahead. My advice is don't get ahead of yourself. Do it one step at a time. Study hard. Do your best in school. And then once you get to the stage of applying for a PhD, then really consider whether it's something that you want to do. It's also not necessarily needed for a lot of different jobs. So think about what career you want. Like if you want to be an academic, then yeah, sure, you have to get a PhD. If you don't want to be an academic and you want to work in industry like me, you don't always need a PhD, right? You can just go into industry, get experience, right? So think about it. Blue Current, I've seen your fake data videos. The amount of times it's happened in academia is staggering and starting to worry me quite a bit. Good. I mean, I mean that's the point. I know worrying is not a particularly positive emotion, but I think we should be worried, right? Because what I report on is not even the tippiest tip of the iceberg, right? Like I, it takes me ages to make one video, so like I can only talk about very few different instances of when fake data and academic fraud has happened. It's happening all the time and at a much more rapid pace than really the system is built to deal with. And so the solution is to change the system, really. Abdal says, "What jobs can we get with a PhD?" You can get a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs require kind of research skills. A lot of my job, for example, you can get if you have a PhD, but you can also get without a PhD because I don't have a PhD, right? So it really depends on your experience. Um, the point of getting a PhD is that it shows people that you know how to do research in a quantitative way, in a very well considered and scientific way. So that's useful to a lot of institutions. Um, and of course, if you want to be an academic, you have to have a PhD, but it's not a necessity for a lot of jobs. Mark Corrigan, could you do a review of the works of Mario Bunga? Maybe I'm not. I am unfamiliar with him and what works he's done, and if there is anything interesting to talk about there. But if there is, um, send me an email and maybe I'll look into it. Blue Current says YouTube algorithm is unfortunately against going outside of the niche. I've heard people say that they get punished by the algorithm because they stepped outside of their norm. Yeah, that's true. Like it's true and it's not true, right? Like it's most of the time, if I make a video that is outside of my usual type of academic fraud content, it generally doesn't perform as well. However, um, that is to be expected. Like I said, this explore exploit framework that I talked about earlier. Whenever you're exploring something new, most of the time the new stuff isn't going to be as profitable as the reliable stuff. But that doesn't mean that you have to do the old reliable every time, right? sometimes exploring is what allows you to discover things that could lead to much greater successes in the future. The whole reason I started talking about academic fraud on this channel was because of one of these such videos, right? Like I used to make only scientific behavioral science explainer videos where I'd explain concepts in behavioral science. That's how this channel started out. And then it just so happened that one of the top researchers in my field, Francesca Gino, was involved in this big scandal. So I deviated from my usual content to talk about that. And that turned out to be one of the best decisions I made because then that led to me that led to firstly my most successful video ever. Like that video nearly has 2 million views now, and has also led me to realize that there's a massive appetite on YouTube for people to learn about academic fraud, and so that's what led me to pivot the channel in that direction. Was because of this exploring. So yes, you do normally get punished most of the time, but you only need it to go right one or two times for you to discover something brand new that's really worthwhile pursuing. Pratik Murari says, and if you could apply one principle for behavioral science to instantly improve people's daily lives, what would it be and why? Ooh, good one. Think about externalizing blame, right? Uh, what do I mean by that? I think people are often too harsh on themselves for why they are in the situation they're in. If you feel like your body doesn't look like how you want it to, or you're unable to study as much as you want to, or you're unable to eat as healthily as you want to, like a lot of these issues that people have, they tend to blame themselves for that. And one of the things that we learn from behavioral science is that a lot of the time it's not really your fault. It's basically you are basically a product of your environment, and understanding that very fundamental concept is quite liberating, really, because you realize then that, oh, actually, it's not the reason why I'm not doing these things that are good for me is because I'm not making it easy for myself in my day-to-day life. And so when you think about the problem in that way, then you end up making these environmental changes where which actually make the behavior more likely. And so you end up, rather than getting angry at yourself and punishing yourself and not doing the thing that you want to do, um, you end up coming up with effective solutions by shaping your environment that helps facilitate the good um, behavior. So yeah, I just think that fundamental concept is really important and one of the most important things that I take it away from being a behavioral scientist. Alexander Kashkin says you did a cool video about a rat with a giant penis created using Gen AI. Do you think that is the future of Gen AI on quality of publications? Yeah, yeah, yes is the answer to that. Like, we are already seeing an absolute flood of Gen AI garbage being submitted to journals. Like, it is unbelievable, right? Like, and obviously it was going to happen, right? Like, it's so obvious it was going to happen. Like, teachers in schools are dealing with the same issue when it comes to like kids' homework, right? Like, they submit homework assignments, essay assignments, and they're just getting a bunch of Gen AI garbage back. And so journals are basically asking for scientists' homework, right? Give me your homework, and guess what? They're getting a bunch of Gen AI garbage back. And it's not just the images, although the images are hilarious to look at because they're so obviously AI generated, but it's just the text as well, right? The text is clearly AI generated. It's a bunch of non like vaguely scientific word vomit that people just chuck onto a page, and it'll even contain like telltale signs, things like when you type when you work with ChatGPT, it'll say things like, as an AI algorithm, I can't blah 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 blah, and like those words will be in published scientific papers or like manuscripts that get submitted to journals. They'll contain the text as an AI algorithm in the text of of the paper, and yet they'll still get published a lot of the time. Um, it's ridiculous, really. I don't know how there's not more automated screening of this stuff. Like, as someone who does a little bit of coding, it really doesn't seem that difficult a thing to search for, right? Like these things could be developed in a week, and they're not being used. A lot of other technological tools that can help detect at least duplicate images are not being used by a lot of journals. And I'm sure there are tools being developed, or maybe have been already developed, that can detect AI images. Um, but those are not being used either. So yeah, it is an absolute crazy situation. Like the amount of Gen AI nonsense that is diluting the quality of the scientific record right now is sad, to be honest. Pratik says, "Damn, you give anarchist for behavioral science vibes." I'm not an anarchist for behavioral science. I'm not an anarchist for science in general. In fact, I love science, and everybody who does scientific sleuthing or talks about scientific fraud are all people who love science, right? And we love science, and that's why it makes us so sad that we see the state of something that we love be destroyed by bad actors, bad incentives, bad controls just across the board. It's depressing. It's depressing to see something that you appreciate um, look just be poisoned by all this rubbish. So we do it because we love it, right? It's like you care about the environment, and so you talk about the garbage that's being dumped into the ocean, and you talk about deforestation. It's not because you hate trees that you talk about deforestation. You love trees, and it's sad that people are chopping them down at a rate that's unsustainable. Blue Current says, "You're a behavioral science guy. Nice. Got some overlap with my field of archaeology." Oh, archaeology. Very interesting. Do you look at dinosaur bones? I love paleontology. I guess archaeology is more like ancient civilizations, right? Yeah. Stretch, thank you so much for tackling academic fraud so directly. I'm a teacher. I want this work done. No worries, Stretch. Thank you for watching my videos. Yeah, I mean, it is weird. I think, as far as I know, I'm basically the only channel that really focuses on this topic, at least consistently. You know, trying to hit this problem head on, right? Not trying to beat around the bush with it. And I think it's doing a good service. At the very least, I think I act as a incentive for scientists to be more honest, because nobody wants to end up on my channel and have a video made about them that gets shown to hundreds of thousands or sometimes millions of people, telling the world that they're a fraud. So at least I hope I'm at least providing a service in that sense. Blue current scientists unite. Yeah, we really should, and we should really kick up more of a fuss about this stuff. Pratik Muari, which book do you think everyone should read, whether they're into behavioral science or not? And for someone who's new to reading, what a good starting point or genre to dive into? What book do I think everyone should read? I mean, if you're looking for a behavioral science book, I think you can't go wrong with Nudge, which is Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein's book. It's a classic. Yeah, Nudge is a good one. If you want to learn about scientific fraud, um, oh, there's a really good book I talked about in my short form integration the other day. I can't remember what it's called now. But yeah, that one is really good. Um, yeah, I can't remember the name of it though. Sorry. Blue Current, Human Material Culture. Yeah. Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Stretch says behavioral science of K-12 school principals, particularly regarding their career ambition and that effect on school resources, would be great. Behavioral study of K-12 school principals. I have no idea what a K-12 school principal is. Bear in mind, I'm British, and so K-12 means nothing to me. Um, yeah, but yeah, not sure what you mean. Not sure what you mean by that. If you're just joining the stream, I see a few more people have tuned in. This is a Q&A. It's also just a way for me to say thank you for helping me to reach 100,000 subscribers last week. Yeah, 100,000 subscribers. Absolutely crazy. Um, I went to go see Taylor Swift the other day. She was in London doing her show in Wembley. And Wembley Stadium is a massive stadium in London with a capacity of 100,000 people, roughly. And so I was thinking, oh my goodness, if all of my subscribers were in one place, we could fill every seat in Wembley Stadium. That's the stadium that Taylor Swift performs to, right? And that's absolutely insane. So yeah, I can't thank you guys enough for the support. Like that's an absolutely crazy amount of people, and yeah, I really appreciate it. Hmm. Kindergarten to 12th grade is K-12. Kindergarten 3 to 4 years old to grade 12, 17 to 18 years old. You're heading for 1 million for sure. Cheers, Stretch. Appreciate that. Yeah, maybe maybe one day, in another 45 years, maybe. But we'll keep posting videos. We'll keep posting videos regardless. So you want me to do a behavior talk about a behavioral study of K-12 school principals, particularly regarding their career ambition and effect in school research. Oh, you mean the principal of the school and how their career ambitions affect school resources? Hmm. I've never heard of a study that has looked into this. Um, but I imagine as a teacher, you probably have some hypotheses as to what's going on there. If it's the case that um, school principals are incentivized to allocate resources in a way that maybe is good for the SEV, but not necessarily good for the school, then I'm sure that's what's happening. The interesting thing about being a behavioral economist, right, is that we study both psychology and economics, and after learning about these two fields for many years, uh, the thing that I've realized is that they're both important, right? So the behavioral part of behavioral economics basically says that our choices are determined by our environment, um, which can and cannot include financial incentives. And economics is mainly focused on financial incentives. And it turns out that, yeah, both these things are super important for decision making. Um, and so, yeah, so it's important to look, I think, at any market, it's important to look at where the incentives lie. And in the case of academic publishing, the incentives do not lie in a way that promotes honest research, such as e.g. principals often make the counselor do documents production for grants instead of actually counseling kids. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, obviously counseling kids is obviously should be the main job of a counselor. Um, but yeah, I know nothing about running a school, and I haven't read any studies about this either. So I don't want to speak on something which I'm not qualified to speak on. Furin Khan says, "I'm wondering why do I have an Indonesian last name? Because my dad's Indonesian. Simple as that. My dad was born in Indonesia. Uh, he's Chinese Indonesian, and so I have an Indonesian last name. Simple as that. I was born here though, and I'm British." Blue Current. That sounds like an interesting paper, like how their background and values change the way school operates. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Alexander says, do you plan to expand your videos to cover fraud in industry that involves academic research, like the Theranos case? I am. And I already kind of have, right? So I made a video the other day about Purdue Pharma and OxyContin, the painkiller, the opioid, that in large part that played a large part in causing the opioid crisis in America. And the topics I talked about in that video are very similar to topics I talk about in other scientific fraud, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the same kind of people who are doing the research. It's just who they're working for, right? They're just not working for a university; they're working for big pharma instead. But they have the same skill set essentially. And um, so yeah, I do plan on talking about it a little bit more. That video was kind of a little bit of a trial run. It performed okay. It didn't go crazy. So I don't know whether I didn't get the framing quite right, or maybe just the topic was not recent enough or poignant enough. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, it is something which I'm keen to explore more because I'm actually somebody who work I don't work in academia, right? And so in a way I have more knowledge about industry-led research than I do academic-led research. Although I do have a decent amount of knowledge about academic-led research too. So yeah, I probably will do more industry stuff. Theranos case is definitely one that has been mentioned by you and other people in the past as well. So yeah, I might cover that one. That's definitely one to have on the backlog. Ben Peaks, why do banks need behavioral scientists? I'm a microbiologist. So banks need behavioral scientists because um, banks are just organizations of people who serve um, customers who are also people. And behavioral scientists are specialists in people and in understanding why people do what they do. Right. So banks are very interested in getting people who work at the bank to do certain behaviors, like adopting new technology, for example, or make sure that colleagues are sticking to certain rules and regulations. And then they're also interested in what customers do and like why do customers choose the products that they choose? Why are customers responding to certain incentives and why are customers not responding to certain incentives? Those are all things that behavioral scientists can help with. Um, yeah, Spencer, I'm talking about my day job. So I work at a bank as a behavioral scientist. And yeah, and the other thing about behavioral scientists is that we're just people who are very good at knowing how to run an experiment, which is actually quite rare in industry. Like a lot of people don't come from scientific backgrounds and they end up working in industry, but then their job ends up being quite scientific. Like they're supposed to figure out uh, a way of answering a question, um, and the best way to answer a question is to run an experiment, right? And so so behavioral scientists are scientists who know how to run good experiments. We know the importance of a control group. We know the importance of um, yeah, of like controlling certain variables. We know how to set up experiments in a way that establish causality. So, the skill sets that behavioral scientists have is just very useful to a lot of businesses, whether we're looking at customers or colleagues or whoever. Um, just knowing how to conduct good research is what you get with a psychology degree and a behavioral science degree. Batinka, hi, love your content. Want a clickbaity topic? Talk about why conspiracy theories are attractive from a behavioral science point of view. Yeah. So I thought about doing this video for a while. I don't. I'm not probably not going to do it going forward because the channel's kind of moved on from being strictly a behavioral science channel. Um, but yeah, I've talked about conspiracy. I have a whole video that I made about this topic, and I never published it because it didn't turn out very well. But I made a whole video um, about oh, I've forgotten his name now. Oh, that's really bad. There's a very famous psychologist from I think the 70s, and he managed to infiltrate a cult. It was a doomsday cult who believed that the world would, who believed that this one woman had specialist connection to an alien force that told her that the world was going to end. And what was interesting that these psychologists managed to infiltrate this group of like 6 people, and these people truly believed that the world was going to end, and they had like ended relationships with loved ones. They'd sold all their worldly possessions because that's what they thought would have them be saved by these alien saviors. And then what happened, of course, is that what was interesting about this particular case is that the doomsday was very specific. And so the doomsday came, and these people were all waiting for the world to end. And then, of course, the world didn't end. And so then these psychologists got to observe what happened after these people had sacrificed so much, believed that the world would end, and then it didn't end. And they got to see how they reacted to that. And what happened was that rather than these people respond rationally, which is to go, oh my goodness, we're all idiots. And why did we think that the world was going to end? Instead, they ended up doubling down and believing in a new conspiracy that their faith in the aliens is what saved the Earth, and then they went around telling all the press and the media that that's what happened uh, in their cult. And so it was a very interesting study, and it basically shows that um, we want to be consistent with our previous actions. And so if you're somebody who sacrificed so much of your life, and you've ended relationships with loved ones, and you've sold all your worldly possessions, and you've become into this crazy group for a while, that it is much easier to continue believing in a conspiracy than it is to admit that you're an idiot. And so that's why a lot of people continue to believe in conspiracy theories, even in the face of very demonstrable, strong evidence that their conspiratorial point of view is wrong. Because a lot of the time, it is easier from a psychological point of view to just continue believing that the conspiracy is true. Spencer says, do you find that things that would benefit a bank, overdraft fees, late fees, conflict with providing services to customers? Um, so I shouldn't comment on this because I might get in trouble at work. So I can't I can't comment on that. So that's me neither agreeing nor disagreeing, to be clear. Spencer says, adding reminders to customers to pay their bills or about upcoming bills. Yeah, I mean these are all things that we've suggested or things that the bank uh, has rolled out already. So yeah. Stretch says, do you think the entire field of psychology needs a Hippocratic oath, like medical doctors have, to give legal framework to prosecute psychologists who enable torture or enact abusive experiments? I mean, maybe that would help, but I think more importantly, we have stronger ethics. We have stronger ethical committees these days, and experiments need ethical approval. And so, yeah, I mean, generally, you don't see terrible stuff happening in psychological experiments these days like you used to do back before the year 2000. Like things are a lot better now. Things are a lot more robust now. So, generally, there's no need. Marek and any science fraud channels recommendations? I watch you and Bobby Broccoli, but always looking for more. Yeah, I think me and Bobby Broccoli are the main ones, to be honest. Like we're the ones who talk about it the most. It's a very niche genre on YouTube. There aren't many of us who talk about this topic at all. There's another guy called Andy Stapleton who is another British guy, and he does have a PhD. He talks about it sometimes, but he more talks. But his channel is more for PhD people. But occasionally he talks about this academic fraud issue, like I do. I think he's probably inspired by my videos, to be honest. And so he talks about it sometimes. So yeah, if you want to check out Andy Stapleton, go check him out. Very charismatic guy. Ratinka says, "See, I knew there was a lot to talk about. Thank you for a sneak peek." The sneak peek might be all you get, to be honest. But Bratinka, sorry. Like, I probably won't do a whole video on this topic of conspiracy theories because it's just not really in keeping with the direction of the channel right now. But to the Jack, hi, I just wanted to say that your videos have been really useful for my psychology statistics class, which I recently got a first. Nice one, mate. Smashed it. Thank you for your videos explaining academia. I'm glad to hear that they were useful. I would also double check anything that I say on the channel. I have made many an error in previous videos explaining a statistical term slightly incorrectly, and you guys are very keen to tell me that in the comments when I do so. So yeah, I'm glad it was useful, but don't take things that I say in my videos as gospel. Make sure you double check statistical terms because sometimes I make mistakes. Um, what areas would you say I've learned from in terms of statistics? Like, I talked about what was it in the Francesca Gino video, my most viewed video. I conflate um, effect size and statistical significance, which is weird. I don't know why I did it because I knew the difference back then and I know the difference now. But I think in the heat of the video and in the rush to get the video out, I made that error in my dialogue, and then it ended up in the final video. I didn't catch it, and so yeah, that's one which I definitely feel the pain of. Um, yeah, I can't think of any others right off the top of my mind right now, but there's definitely been a couple others that people have been like, oh, technically that's not correct because blah 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 blah. So yeah, just just to let you know that's the case. Right, I'm probably going to stream for like another 15 minutes. It's a very short stream. It's just to the stream was just to thank you guys for 100,000 subscribers that we hit last week. Crazy milestone, really crazy milestone, and I can't thank you enough for the support that everyone has shown. So if you're just joining the stream now, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, this is a Q&A live stream, so drop them in the chat just like Bert the Jack just did, and I'll read them. So Bert the Jack says, uh, also, there always seem to be issues with how academic concepts interact with YouTube and social media widely. I know Economics Explained gets a lot of flack for not being robust. Yeah, exactly. And there's all first of all, if you make a video and it reaches a lot of people, then you're also going to get a lot of opinions in the comments. And sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. And so you can't, as a creator, you can't like get too beaten up if somebody doesn't like your stuff, because if it reaches a large audience, there's bound to be some people who don't like your stuff. Um, and also, it is impossible as a creator to be the leading subject matter expert on anything, really, because you spend so much of your energy and time learning how to make videos and create videos and film videos. And so, like, of course, you're going to get stuff wrong. And of course, you're not going to know as much as somebody who literally like investigates the topic of your video for their job, day in day out. So like, yeah, I'm sure Economics Explained uh, gets a lot of flack, and I'm sure he maybe makes some claims that are not the most robust according to some people's calculations, but I think he does generally a very good job, and I think it's impossible for it's impossible for anyone on YouTube to be like the most expert on every single video that they make, because it's just not realistic. Stretch says, "Did you know Zimbardo, Stanford Prison Experiment, reviewed Milgram's obedience experiment? He said only one person actually reported Milgram to university authorities." Very interesting. So, if you guys don't know these experiments, Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment, very controversial. Um, Basically had some people assigned prisoner, some people assigned guard, and then he reviewed their behavior and found that the people who were assigned guard grew to be very cruel to the people who were assigned prisoner. Uh, is very ethically dubious, and also it turns out the methods were really dodgy as well, because the people who were assigned guard were like people who were kind of like previously predisposed to being angry, and Zimbardo knew this. It wasn't like a randomized distribution. So yeah, that's a very controversial experiment. And yeah, Milgram's obedience experiment, if you don't know, is one where Milgram was testing whether people would administer electric shocks to a stranger to a potentially lethal voltage if somebody in an authoritative outfit, like a scientist who was leading a research, told them to do so. And what he found in his experiment was that like a lot of people would actually do that um, when uh, when instructed to do so by an authoritative figure. But of course, this left like a lot of, even though they were debriefed afterwards and told that like, oh, the person that you thought you were electrocuting was actually not a real person; it was just a recording over a speaker. But despite that, these people were left with a lot of psychological trauma, and obviously that experiment is very unethical, would never be allowed to be done today. Um, so yeah, I mean, back in the day of Zimbardo and Milgram, psychology was the Wild West, and like there was very little ethical approval. Um, it was just a complete nightmare. So like, I always say to my colleagues that like we should try to cite more recent stuff. I said that to my previous employment and in my current employment. just because like more recent experiments just generally tend to be better. They're better methods, better ethics. Just everything's generally better the more recent it is. That's a very general statement, but all else being equal, the more recent stuff is going to be better. So, um, yeah, it was a crazy time, but man, those studies sparked a lot of debate, and they were some of the first things that I learned in psychology, and definitely some of the things that drew me into the subject and got me interested in it. So, as horrible as they were, they did. Maybe the net benefit in the long run has been that a lot of people have got interested in psychology as a result. So, um, maybe it's for the greater good. Who knows? Alexander says, "Thank you for your videos and Q&A. I'm always super excited when new stuff comes out. Great content. How do you think the Francesca Gino case may end?" I have absolutely no idea. The Francesca Gino case was something which I expected to make one video on and be done with it, and I've made like so many videos on it now because the story just keeps developing. It keeps developing, and things, new surprises keep coming out. You know, uh, right now, uh, from as somebody who has looked at a lot of the evidence on this case, I think that Data Colada have a much stronger case than Francesca Gino does, and so um, I don't really see how Francesca Gino walks away from this without some sort of repercussion. However, um, I'm not a legal expert, so who knows? Maybe her lawyers are amazing and they can find a way to justify it. Or maybe we're all wrong and Francesca Gino has been right this whole time. So yeah, who knows, mate? Who knows? All I know is whenever it does get resolved, I'm making a video on it. Berta Jack says, "Would you regard psychology as a proto-science?" No, I do not regard psychology as a proto-science or a pseudo-science or a soft science or anything other than the full respect it deserves, which is as science. Psychology is just as scientific as any other field. The methods that we use are very robust, they're very scientific, and the impact of the findings are really impactful on a lot of different people. Um, Arguably a lot more impactful than a lot of stuff you get out of like traditional hard sciences like physics because our research directly looks at people. So no, psychology is science, and it's anyone who tells you there's anything less than that is wrong. Stretch, agree, great content. Thank you, Stretch. uh Io's says they actually wrote an entire book called When Prophecy Fails. Festinger, that's his name. Yes, if you were here earlier when I talked about the conspiracy theories, um, and how there was a researcher, a psychologist who investigated a cult that believed that doomsday would come and then it didn't come. That was Leon Festinger from 1956. Um, yeah, long time ago. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Isaac. Batinka says, think about taking advantage of the community you build. If you have a potential topic not in your expertise, check if there is someone specializing among your viewers. That is a very good point. I've done this sometimes when people have emailed me and they tell me that they're an expert in the field, and sometimes I will leverage that if I think it's necessary. But um, yeah, while I love to crowdsource things, it can slow down the production process quite a lot because then I have to schedule a call with this person. The call will usually be like half an hour or an hour, and then my editor has to then comb through all that footage to then incorporate the little sound bites that are going to be relevant for the video and uh, all this stuff. So um, yeah, I mean, I try to do it where I can, but sometimes the demand of making the content doesn't allow it. If I feel like I have a decent enough grasp on the topic, I will generally just go for it without having to incorporate anyone external. But yeah, if I'm feeling really lost, maybe I will. Stretch says, "Have you seen the studies linking discussed reactions to political voting decisions?" Uh, I have not, but I believe that that would make sense. I mean, from my understanding, disgust is a very consistent form of psychological research. disgust is such a strong and powerful emotion, and it's predictive of a lot of things. In fact, of all of the of all of the main emotions, disgust is the one that I've read the most about. It's something very instinctive. Goosey, I am not answering any questions about the microphone I use. I am sick of people asking me to buy a new microphone. It's the reason why my videos are echoey is not because of my microphone, it's because of the room I'm in and I can't do anything about it. So no questions about my microphone. But to the Jack, that sounds really sensitive to cultural values and political structures. He's referring to stretch. Oh, you're referring about the political voting decisions. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is very sensitive to those things. Goosey says, "Yeah, I heard that uh, Republicans react more strongly to disgust slash fear. Maybe that's true. I would be very skeptical, though, of a lot of academic research about Republicans and Democrats because many universities, are generally more left leaning, and the faculty are generally more left leaning, and the student population are generally more left leaning. Um, I don't know why, but that just seems to be the case, and that's true in America, and that's true in the UK as well. And so, um, yeah, and so any kind of research that looks into how people on the left political spectrum compared to people on the right political spectrum, especially if the research is done on student populations, I think is uh, is subject to a little bit of bias in general. Obviously, there are right leaning people in all these institutions, but from my experience and from what I understand, in general, most universities on balance tend to be a little bit more left leaning politically. Okay, if there are no more questions, then I may bring the stream to a close. This was very impromptu, as nearly all of my live streams are. I just kind of like go, "Hey, surprise! I'm going live," and then you you guys magically show up, and I appreciate you. Um, I appreciate you coming in, asking me questions. Goosey says the mic I was what asking what mic I was wasn't a dig at me, by the way. It was genuinely curious. Okay, fine. You want to see the microphone? This is the microphone I use. It's this fluffy one from Rode, who are the main microphone people. It's a very good microphone. Um, yeah, sorry if I came off a bit cold about that question. It's a sensitive topic. It's a sensitive topic because so many people in my comments asked me to buy a new microphone, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Stewie says, "Hi Peter, where did you study? I studied at the University of Warwick, which is a very good university in England, in the Midlands, near Birmingham. It's one of the top. Well, at the time when I was studying, it's one of the top 10 universities in the UK. I'm not sure where it rates right now, and it was definitely one of. It's arguably the best in the country for behavioral science, which is the topic that I studied. So, yeah, Warwick University, really good one. Okay, thank you guys. Oh, got more questions. Okay, okay, I'll stay on for 2 minutes because we've got some more questions. Michael Dan Bohisson says perhaps academics have higher trait openness, which may also lead them towards the left. Maybe. So if you don't know what he's talking about, openness is one of the core 5 personality traits. We call them the ocean traits because ocean is an acronym. So you have openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Michael is saying that perhaps academics have higher openness, which means like openness to new ideas, openness to new opportunities, which leads them more towards the left. Uh, Perhaps, but surely you would think that openness would make them more balanced in general, right? Because they'd be exploring more ideas from many different concepts, different things, and so they would be, or at least more central in their political leaning rather than more left. So yeah, I'm not sure. Goosey says, "What does it feel like being my favorite YouTuber, mate?" I appreciate that. That is such a compliment to say that I'm your favorite YouTuber. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Um, Goose C says, have academics always been more towards the left, the American left? I have no idea if it's always been the case. Just from my understanding, that is the case right now. In general, like I said, these are all very general. These are all generalizations. There are definitely right-leaning academics and right-leaning students, but in general, the institutions tend to be more left-leaning, at least at the top level. Alexander says, I'm curious about where you see yourself on the political spectrum. If you're not comfortable sharing, feel free to skip this question. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about my own political opinions on the internet because that's stupid. Um, but yeah, I'm just not going to talk about it. I'll have strong opinions on other things, like the state of absolute nonsense that's going on in the academic sphere and the amount of AI garbage that's being submitted to journals right now. But I will not talk about my political leanings on the internet. Zuvia says, "Hi Pete, do you have an audience outside of the US?" Yes, I do. In fact, only 50% of my audience is from the US, roughly. Um, and then other big populations are, of course, the UK, where I'm from, Canada, um, Russia, Ukraine is pretty big. France is pretty big. Um, yeah, I'm very lucky to have a very international audience. I get people messaging me from like, pretty obscure countries, at least countries that I don't normally think about as a British person, like I don't know, like who is it the other day? Um yeah, I've had I got people messaging me saying, "Hi, I'm from Bolivia," or "Hi, I'm from Burundi," and I'm like, "You're from Burundi and you're watching my videos?" Like, I I had no idea that I would have a fan in Burundi, but I do. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have such an international audience. Are you familiar with Thomas Sowell's work? If so, what do you think? I am not familiar with Thomas Sowell's work, so I don't think anything of it. Goosey, when will we get our Pete Judo daily vlogs? Absolutely never. Daily vlogs. YouTubers who do daily vlogs, I have huge respect for them because it is like a massive commitment, both from a time perspective, but also just from an energy point of view. Like the idea of vlogging every part of your day, every day. Oh my goodness, it must be so tiring. So yeah, never, Goosey. You will never get a daily vlog from me. I'm so sorry. I think it says Poland here. Hello, 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 Poland. Thank you for tuning in. All right, guys, that's an hour. I only plan to stream for about an hour, so we're over an hour now. So I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you again for 100,000 subscribers. I appreciate the incredible support from you guys. It's absolutely an it's such a mind-blowing milestone that I never thought I would ever get to. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you for asking me questions. Thank you for spending time with me today. And I have filmed a new video. It is currently in editing, and so that video will be coming out hopefully next week. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you then. All right. Bye bye.